Hi, this is Annie Grace, and welcome to this Naked Mind podcast. Today I'm here with Simone. Welcome, Simone. So good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
That's awesome. So why don't you just kind of take us back to sort of where everything started for you and kind of the beginning?
So my beginning, I think, is when I was born, actually. When I wrote you the information at first, it was like, I was brought into an already fractured family, and it was there was a lot of drama and trauma going on during
Fractured
that
as in
time.
divorce or?
I was born in 1961 in Middle America. My dad was in the Air Force, and he married my mom, who was German. And they got married in Germany, and then they had my two sisters there. And then he got stationed in the United States, and so they came over when my older sister was just 6 weeks old. And 3 months after they got to the United States, which, my mom was almost 30. It was just a big transition for her with two babies and never been to the United States. And
Did
then
you speak English?
She did, but, not as she didn't have a great grasp of the language as she could or does now. So anyway, but 3 months after they got here, my dad was diagnosed with leg sarcoma. And this was 1960. So the treatment for that is to amputate the leg at the hip. And that was just 3 months after they came to the United States. So the Air Force took my dad away from my mom and my two sisters for a whole year. And it was really, that was a big, incident and struggle for them. And so my dad comes back, and then I was born. So I was born into all of this. And so my dad's coping mechanism was drinking alcohol. And so alcohol was always in my life, present with, I saw my dad drinking a lot. And so that's how it started. So about 13 years old is when I started dabbling in alcohol and with my friends. And, the first time I didn't like it, like most of your other guests have said. I think it was Everclear, and it made me sick.
Wow, you went right to the jugular.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, when I could, I would, drink with my friends, but it wasn't like I had to have it all the time. And then there was, from about 14 to 18, I dabbled in drinking and smoking pot and, doing all the things that were in the 70s. And so I did all those things from like age 14 to age 18. Another piece of my story, I think, that started causing me problems and probably led to my addictive nature and using substances was I had a traumatic event when I was 14, and I was raped, and there was a trial and there was a conviction. And then after that, it was like in the school it was around my junior high. And so I began to receive a lot of bullying from the people that knew the boys that were the perpetrators. And so it just made me lose interest in school. And I asked my mom to let me switch schools, but that wasn't going to happen. This is in the 70s. It was just like, deal with it and move on. And so basically I dropped out of school. I was in the 8th grade. School was easy for me, but it was just not a happy place for me. And so I basically had been on my own since I was 13. I started living with my first boyfriend when I was 14. I worked. We broke up after 2 years, and then my parents kind of didn't know what to do with me. Either one of them. My dad was still drinking. My mom was, they got a divorce during that time. So that was another traumatic event, in our lives. And they just didn't know what to do with me. But anyway, my dad set me up with an apartment when I was 16 years old. I had my own apartment. I was on my own. And I would always, use substances to cope. just to forget what was going on in my life. But I was always able to take care of myself. I learned a lot, and I learned it quick. And then I met my first husband when I was 17. We became pregnant, and then had a baby, and just got into married life. He was 9 years older than me, and I thought when I got with him, he was going to be my caretaker and my provider. Well, it ended up being me being the more outgoing one, the one that put things together. I was the stronger one in that relationship. So there was years of that, and him and I would party together too with our friends and go out. And then I just got tired of it, and I wanted something more. And so I decided to, we had another son, and it was 9 years apart. And during that time, I decided I wanted something more. So I started going to nursing school. And so I graduated nursing school in 1994, and I've been a nurse ever since. And then about 2 years after I graduated nursing school is when my first husband and I divorced. But all during that time, I would drink, and when I would drink to get drunk. It was like just to obliviate myself. So I was on my own for 5 years, and I did fine, and I was productive and moving forward, but I would always drink, and that's when I think that I started to see the drinking increase a little bit. What I would use it for coping mechanism,
And how many kids did you have at this time?
Two. So yeah, so I had 2 boys. So when I divorced my first husband, my oldest was already 17 and my youngest was 7. So then I met my now husband, and we've been together 20 years. And our lifestyle was, we would drink with friends and everything socially, we would drink. And he works in an industry like you did, that was like alcohol was a big part of it, and so we would have all these events that were alcohol soaked and trips that were alcohol soaked. And it was just that lifestyle. And my need for alcohol just kept increasing, just, like you mentioned in your book and the podcast, I just became conditioned to it, and I needed more and more and more. And then I really started questioning my drinking, and my husband started making comments about it as well, because he would never he doesn't have the same issue with it that I do. He can have a couple drinks and then he can stop and he's fine. Mm-hmm. And it's not an issue for him. He didn't grow up drinking. So I remember I wrote in my story to you that the reason that so everybody starts looking for things, on the internet, starts doing the deep search. And my husband and I like to watch Anthony Bourdain. And so when he died last summer, that really just was an aha moment for me. It's like, they found a lot of alcohol in his blood, when they did the autopsy, and no drugs in his system, but he had a lot of alcohol. So that really got me to thinking. And then I was watching that Elizabeth Vargas video, mm-hmm. or story about her drinking, and that's when I saw your book. And then I downloaded it immediately to my Kindle, and it was like, that's what I needed, and I could follow it the way that you wrote it, from a biopsychosocial perspective, because that's how I was trained as a nurse. And it just made so much sense to me. And it gave me the permission to say it wasn't a weakness. It's, it has a biological cause. Neurochemical reactions, why I was getting so addicted. There is the emotional piece and the things that I had to get through, the reasons why I was drinking. But it's been a little over 5 months and I haven't had a drink. Mm-hmm. And I love that you said, I don't have to do that anymore, because that's how I feel. I just like, I got to get off of that train. I don't have to do it anymore. And it's been interesting to take the pieces apart and figure out the whys, why I was drinking. And, you know, my backstory, you can understand why. You know, there was a lot of events. And one thing I'll say, too, that I've been uncovering, and I've realized it for a long time, my mom grew up during World War II, and one of the town that she lived in was the third most heavily bombed. And so her story of World War II and the traumas that she went through almost became my story and my sister's story. And it was like, you know, a generational shift, you know, of her trauma and her story becoming my story and the stress of it. I think that was a big piece of it too.
Yeah, and there is a lot of really interesting kind of research about actually generational trauma, even beyond your immediate parents, which is just fascinating to me. I haven't had as much time to look into it as I would like, but it's kind of been popping up here and there about like how really, you know, not only are you passing down like your hair color and your eye color, but you're also passing down, you know, and it makes sense too, if you think about it from like a neurological perspective, because your thoughts do create actual pathways in your brain, right? So if those pathways are persistent enough, and they too maybe can get passed through, which just, it's fascinating, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think that's a big piece. And so I've been dealing with that and trying to separate myself from that. That's her story. It's not my story. It's a part of me, but I can't own it. It's her story. So that's helped as well to start working through that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I like how you described sort of the alcohol soaked kind of events. And I assume you still have those in your life. How do you handle and navigate those now?
So we just got back from one, actually, and I just started doing more things. And every day there's some scenario and internet connect people. Me here, you know, every night at this convention, so there'll be an opportunity to have drinks and do things. So I just find that if I have a drink in my hand, nobody really ever says anything. So I just go straight to the bar or ask, you know, a server for soda and lime, and no one really even asks. And I just feel fortunate that I don't have to do it anymore. So I'm doing other things with my time during those conventions instead of going to all the events and the drinking. But I do those too, and I still have just as good a time. I just am drinking soda water with lime. You know, it's fine. I'm not having any issues with it.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I know it's fun to go to those things and just kind of watch and be like, okay, because I used to imagine that, you know, right when I first stopped drinking, I would kind of go to it and I'd be like on high alert, like, okay, I'm going to watch these people just have so much fun. And then like, they just didn't change at all until they did change, and it wasn't pleasant because that was 4 or 5 drinks in. And then any change was like not good. And I'm like, is there even alcohol in their drinks? And all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, there is. And that's not pretty. And it was just this thing of like, it didn't like make anything different. You know, nobody really, I don't know. It was just so interesting. But
I remember what you said too about, you know, when they get 4 or 5 drinks in, then your conversation with them isn't meaningful anymore. And I still have the conversation with them. It's just that I understand that it's not going to be meaningful, nor will they probably remember it, you know? So yeah. But yeah, I've had several events since I quit drinking, and, you know, like you suggested, to journal too. So every time I've come back from a big event or had an event, I will journal about my feelings, you know, and I just feel so grateful. And you know, I feel like, the things that have changed for me have been, I'm looking at my notes here real quick. I'm sleeping better. My relationships are improving. I have more energy. I feel like I look better. I'm eating better. I'm paying more attention to me and focusing on me. And that's all been positive.
That's
And I know on some of your other interviews, you'd ask people, well, how did you cope when you first stopped? And I've heard you talk about supplements with others as well. And I did use 5-HTP for a while, which is an amino acid, which is precursor to serotonin. So I feel like that helped me gap that bridge, but I'm no longer feel like I need to use it. Yeah.
That's great.
It was just a couple months I used it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then, you said something too about like just obliviating, which I love that word. I remember literally intentionally thinking like, okay, I just have to, get myself to the point where none of this matters anymore and like obliviate
Yeah.
and using that word. But when you were doing that, and now how do you handle those emotions, those feelings that inevitably come?
I've always worked out. And so exercise helps me tremendously. And also I realized, and I've known this for a long time, I'm very outgoing, but I'm an introvert. And so when I start feeling overstimulated, I know that I need to get off by myself and read a book and have quiet music on. And I just need to be by myself. And that usually is what I do, is I just remove myself to a quiet place and get the solitude that I need.
That's beautiful. And I think so often we're like afraid of solitude because we think, oh my gosh, it's going to be intense or scary or whatever the case is. And the truth is like solitude, once you can overcome that fear and be able to be at peace with yourself, it is one of the most like refreshing things, truly.
Right. And I've always known that I needed a lot of alone time. I've always needed it. And I've just allowed myself, let other people control how much stimuli was coming in instead of me controlling it. And so I would drink to be in those situations that other people wanted me to be in when I knew that I didn't really want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now I don't say yes all the time and to other things, but I say yes to me.
Yeah.
And that's been real helpful. Yeah.
That's just awesome. I love that so much.
Yeah.
That is just so cool. So I always ask this question sort of at the end, and it's really, if you were going to go back and tell Simone like what life is like now, especially, when you're really questioning your drinking and feeling uncomfortable and like, oh, there's no sort of solution or no answer. I don't even know how to approach this. What would you talk to her about? How do you encourage her?
So I knew you were going to ask this. So I thought about it. And it's funny because I thought about it, earlier on and to longer I've been sober, it is, it was having an issue, but can you hear me? So the things so anyway, it kind of morphed, like from the beginning when I started this journey till now, because like I said, I'm about 5 months in. And basically, I would say to her, now is the time. Now's the time for you to do this. And also that peace and harmony that you're looking for is on the other side of you quitting. You just have to quit. And then you're going to start finding that peace and harmony that you've been looking for. And also, you've done challenging things before and you've always risen to the occasion. And this is just another challenge that I know that you can do, that it's going to happen for you. And then also the growth and self-respect and the confidence that I'll have and that I'll gain, especially showing other people how to treat me.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Right? Wow.
Yeah. Because I would just take how people would treat me without, saying anything back. And then I would get angry and then I would stuff it and then I would drink. And then it was just a cycle. And now I'm in control of my emotions. And so I can kindly teach people how to treat me.
That gives me chills. That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
really powerful.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you wanted to sort of share?
Just how grateful I am that I found that I stumbled into your book. And
So was it part of the video, or was it?
no, it was off on the sidebar, you know,
Like, I didn't think it was in that video.
No.
Okay, I
And
watched
it was
it.
just like, oh, I saw it. And then, you know, I clicked on it, and then, you know, I started seeing all the 5-star reviews, and then it was like, boom, I downloaded it to my Kindle, and I started reading it right away. And it was basically, you know, because before that I would try to moderate, you know, I was always trying to moderate. And after I got the book, I just stopped right then when I started reading it. I just didn't need to go back. I said, this just makes so much sense to me. And, you know, and that's what I really appreciated, that you did so much research, and that it spoke to my intellect as, you know, somebody with a science degree. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's what we needed. And it's such a radical new way to look at addiction. And I think that that's why it's gaining so much momentum, and because it works, you know, it's working. Yeah. And it's just awesome. And I'm so grateful and happy for you. And you're helping so many people, so many people.
So much. Yeah. It's really awesome. It continues to blow me away. I feel like ever since sort of the beginning, it was kind of this fork in the road where I was like being, you know, I had made my choice, and I knew that, you know, so many people were like, I was so happy about it, and I was so kind of hungry for it. And I definitely tried out preaching to all my friends, and that wasn't going anywhere good. But I was like, okay, so it's maybe not my friends, but like people, I know there's other people in the same boat. Like I know there is. But I also just felt really clear on the fact that this was going to happen with or without me. It was going to happen. Our society is changing. People are waking up, and I could, you know, be part of it and help it, or somebody else would come in, or lots of other people, as it's happening, like so many people. And so it wasn't as if I felt like, oh gosh, this is all on my shoulders. It was more of like, oh wow, I get the privilege of, you know, kind of spreading this really hopeful message.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what's been awesome, is because I still feel like that, especially watching things change and feeling like, wow, I still get to do this. I still get this privilege of being able to spread this message, you know, so it's really cool.
Yeah. And, you know, I've listened to all your podcasts, and I feel like there's a piece of me in every story. It's like I'm the mosaic of, you know, there's a piece of me in every single story. And it's like, I'm all caught up now. You know, I started like 5 months ago, and I've been through every single one of them. And it was like, that's all I needed. I didn't need to branch out into other areas of support. I just used your book and listen to your podcasts, and it just reinforces everything every day for me.
I'm literally in the middle of, we have because some people don't want to come on the podcast, so they send in blogs, like they write their story on the blog.
Right.
And then obviously the podcast, but I think it's well over 200, close to 300 stories now, which is just crazy.
Nice.
But I'm trying to like pick, you know, a diverse sampling of them and really put them into a book. Yeah. And your story, if you're okay with including it, your taking the transgenerational kind of trauma, taking from your mom, what happened to your dad. I mean, all of those things. And then going through, marriage at such a young age. And I mean, the really just tragic happenings when you were 14. I mean, it's really upsetting. But all of that, I feel like there's so much hope in it too. Like there's just, here you are really vibrant and smiling and on the other side and just very, very happy. So I'd love to include it if you're willing.
Yeah, I am a private person, but strongly that I want this. And I will say one more thing on that. Because I didn't feel the need to tell anybody that I stopped drinking, because most of my damage drinking was done alone. was the type of person that I did it at home. Nobody was here, so I can monitor what I was doing. And so I didn't, a lot of people didn't know how much I was drinking. And so when I started, the people I want to share it with, I did. And then a couple of instances, my husband went ahead and told some people. And we went into like a social situation, and I didn't know he had told people that I quit drinking. And I got all these questions coming at me. And I had a conversation with him just the other day, and I said, I wished you would have asked my permission before you started telling people that I had quit drinking, because I felt like that was my story to tell, and at least you could have asked me. And he understood it, and now he's gonna ask me if it's okay if he shares that information, because I really hadn't shared it, but with just a few people. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, specifically for the book, you can be completely, as anonymous as you want.
Right.
We're on this podcast, so the cat's kind of out of the bag.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, because I was driving it, I'm in control of this, but it was like,
I wonder if my gut tells me that he's proud of you. And that's why he wanted to share. Oh yeah.
Because it had been, a bubbling issue for us for the last 4 or 5 years, and been a concern of mine for longer than that. And I'm sure his as well. Yeah.
I think it's such an attractive quality in people to say, I just don't drink. We underestimate how attractive that is. The only time it cannot be attractive is when those words really hold up a mirror to somebody and they're seeing their own sort of internal conflict or dissonance in it.
Yeah.
But when you say it to anybody who really loves you or cares for you or isn't struggling with their own thing, it is incredibly attractive, because it says so much about, you being so self-assured and confident and at peace with who you are and not needing stuff. It is, I think, like literally viscerally attractive to, I remember being attracted to people like, wow, you don't drink? Like, part of me would be like, huh? But part of me would be like, oh my gosh, tell me more. I think it's really attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just keep hearing stories more and more, like listening to your podcast and the people that come on, but I like the ones that say, I just don't have time for it, because it does take a lot of time, all the thinking about drinking, and then the drinking itself, and then the recovering from the hangover every day. It just like took so much time and effort, so much. And I don't have that anymore. So it's wonderful. Yeah. And it's a movement, like you said.
Love it so much.
Great movement.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing all of that. It was really a beautiful story.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing you in September.
Yes, I can't wait. That's going to be great. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Simone. Have a great day.
You too.
Are you looking to go deeper? You might be interested in the full recordings of This Naked Mind Live 2018. It was an incredible 2 days, and you can now experience it all from the comfort of your living room. You'll love the event, so grab your digital ticket at thisnakedmind.com/digital ticket. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.